Good morning, everyone. So today we have Mr. Theodore Roosevelt and we have Abraham Lincoln in the studio, as well as a Wiggles guitar here, which you may remember, and then a Cool Crew lantern, which you've probably seen some videos on these guys as well. I've done, I think, 2 or 3 of them, but they're always a lot of fun to do. But we're going to be doing repairs on both of these. Not Theodore Roosevelt or Abraham Lincoln, but we are going to be doing the repairs on the Wiggles guitar here, as well as a Cool Crew lantern, and hopefully we can get into some circuit bending on the Cool Crew lantern. But to start out, let's go ahead and do the Wiggles guitar. Now the Wiggles guitar is a really cool instrument, but the 1/4 jack right here popped out. So they sent that back in, and we are going to repair it and just make sure everything's running okay. Okay, so I think we're good right here. Let's check. Okay, we are good. All right. So it looks like this 1/4 jack had popped completely off. Possibly because of pressure? I'm not really sure. I've actually never seen one explode like that. So if you look at the difference here. So these are actually pieces. I'm not quite sure what happened there, but for sure interesting. And I don't think this is going to be too hard of a repair. So as you see, we even have like a guide on where these are going to go to properly function. So I don't think it's going to be too bad of a repair for sure. So what I'm going to do is set this up here, and then we are going to go ahead and solder out our points and just switch them and then throw everything else away. Up and working again, I guess you could say. I had lost the charger for these particular headphones, and I was able to find them again. So now we have headphones on this live stream, whereas last week we did not. So hopefully the audio is better. I'm going to go ahead and put new solder on both of these points. Maybe just carve out the points in general and redo them. Just because they're not really sitting well and they don't look right. So let's go ahead and do this. So that looks a lot better. You can see how the solder actually just kind of mended with the other solder. Whereas before it was more of just sitting on top of it. Okay, we should be good there. And I'm going to go ahead and pry this up. Just to give us a little more space when we put the jack in here. Okay, let's try it out. Okay, so everything appears to be working pretty well on it. I'm not seeing anything that's standing out that's needing repaired aside from that jack. So at this point, we are going to go ahead and put it back together, and we're going to get the Cool Crew lantern out and then see what we can do with that. My hands are rather fatigued at this point. I only have like 2 bolts left. That is if everything went together correctly. So it's always pretty vitally important when you get everything together just to make sure everything works, because very often you can actually pinch a wire inside of the bolts when you put them on, and things can go horribly wrong. And then in that case you would have to, of course, take it back apart and do all of that. So we're just going to check it out, and hopefully I don't have to take the bolts off, but man, this for sure has worn my hands out. Okay. Should be good bolt wise. Let's just check it one more time. So everything seems to be good. We seem to be good to go on this one. And it seems to be a successful repair. Was the LED working? Yes, it was. Alright, so this seems to be a successful repair, so let's go ahead and put this one aside. And let's start on the Cool Crew vacuum cleaner. Now the Cool Crew vacuum cleaner itself came in a couple different pieces. And we're just going to try to put this back together. Now, the first thing that you're going to notice about this, see if you catch it here. So, it is missing a speaker. Now, the speaker is absolutely trashed. So, what we're going to do is we're going to replace it. Now, I ordered another speaker here. Looks like it actually came with 2, but I will show you the other one for comparison here. So it'll kind of make a little more sense. So when you're looking for a speaker, essentially what we're looking for is we're looking for the same amount of ohms and we're looking for the same amount of watts. So what this is an 8 ohm, 0.25 watt speaker. So when you're looking to replace a speaker, that's what we're going to be looking for right there. So I got online, I did some searching, then I found this guy. Now in the picture, this speaker looked a lot bigger. It looked like a perfect match for this. But when it arrived, it was quite a bit smaller. I don't believe that's really going to matter too much aside from mounting it. So we are going to have to do some weird stuff on mounting the speaker, but this will be a better quality speaker. And it absolutely should not show any effect on being smaller. Just because you see the speaker, they are really good quality speakers. They're more new age as opposed to the older ones. So we're just going to have to figure out how to mount it. So it does fit right in here. It just, obviously, it isn't large enough to take up the space the old one did. So before we even know if this thing's working or anything, what we need to do is go ahead and install the speaker and just see if it's doing anything. So I can press the button all day, but without a speaker, we're not going to know. Okay, so that is the correct formation right there. So this one's going to be on the right, this one's going to be on the left. So let's go ahead and solder into this. And as you may have been able to hear, the speaker doesn't sound stressed about the sound at all. That's typically what you would hear if you were dealing with a speaker that was too small to actually take it. Typically, it would be a speaker that would be lower in watts than what you were originally using. But I can see it as well with the ohms. But what it would sound like is almost muffled. Very similar to if you were to take very loud audio and put it into a computer or a video editor or something like that, and it just crank the volume all the way up. How everything is about the same, it's about the same volume, but it just sounds like a stressed sound, if that makes sense. So that sounds really nice. It has different volumes on it, and it is handling it quite well. So the question is, how do we get it to stay there? Well, more than likely, we're going to hot glue it and then just stick it in there, and that'll keep it there. But I think from here, let's go ahead and repair the rest of it. So we have these 4 wires right here. Now, these wires are going to be a little bit confusing just because I don't know where they go at all. And how we're going to do this is we're going to look, see if we can find any clues on the bottom of this Cool Crew lantern here, just by pulling out the circuit board and seeing if they marked it for us. If not, my second go at it is more than likely just going to go around and then touch it around to things and see if we can get any effect off of it, because I believe that's an LED. I know one of them is at least an LED. And let's look at the other one. It might both be LEDs. And I say LED very loosely because it's not really an LED as much as it is a old style light. Yeah, I'm not seeing any buttons or anything that could indicate that it would be something else. So I'm looking at this, but I may be missing it. I'm not seeing anything that's really indicating where we need to put this. My best guess is if we look right here, there's that W2 plus, and I don't see, oh yeah, so W1 plus. So my best guess is maybe these two right here. And as you can see, they are right here, and they don't really have anything hooked to them, although, yeah, never mind, because those are on the same track. So my best guess is let's go around and let's just poke around with this and see if we can get a good effect off of it and see if we can restore it to its original glory. So I'm going to put this circuit board back on here. There's not really too much reason to have it off. So I'm thinking maybe there's two lights in here, and then one being the positive on the white and the negative being on the gray, or vice versa. But this is rather strange. Usually you can see like stress fractures or something in the board that show where it came off. I'm not really seeing any clear indications. I'm going to pop this off, and what we're going to do is we're going to do a hopefully some elimination by just figuring out where the other elements on the board are. Because if we can roll out where all this stuff is, we may be able to figure it out. So it's more than likely not down here, because this looks like it's our patch outs and everything like that. So they wouldn't put an LED down there. This board is so insanely packed though. So they may very well have ran it out of this resistor and capacitor right here, because that would make sense. Or just these two capacitors right there. So let's go ahead and try to hook up some stuff over here. One bad thing is we don't really know when this thing has its lights on either, or even if the lights are functional. So it may serve us better to actually take this out and then see what this other wiring is to. So I think we're going to go ahead and do that, because at least if we do that, we can eliminate two of the wires on here and figure out what wires are running directly to this lantern light and figure out why we have two other ones. Actually might be taking out the wrong bolts. I think these are the bolts we actually need to be taking out. So that guy's off. Now let's see if we can, well, looks like there are two lights inside of here. So I am going to go ahead and take this out and then just see if we can get a more clear picture of what we're dealing with here. so this is out. Yeah, so it looks like these are two different LEDs, or at least there are two LEDs in here that are housing out of these wires. So maybe we're dealing with one gray and one white, or both whites and then both grays. It's really hard to tell. I'm trying to pull this out, but I'm not really having any luck with it. Let's see if we can get some needle nose and just kind of wiggle it out here. Okay, so it looks like that would rather break than to come out, so that's not good. Okay, well, my guess is that I'm going to say these are separate things. I'm going to say that the whites are together and the grays are together. That is just a guess, but that's what I'm going to go with. Okay, so if you saw that, it was definitely working, but it was also giving some weird distorted sound. Okay, so that seems to be working very well. So let's go ahead and solder onto that. Now these are the two gray ones. I don't know if they are separate, but I see another place that may work as the ones that originally housed the whites. So let's go ahead and put this on here. Okay, so that seems to be working really well. Alright, so let's try these guys out right here. Okay, so I don't quite know what this does. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and latch these other two directly where we latch the gray ones. Because as you've seen, it is turning it on a bit, but it's not really something that's showing a big difference. So let's go ahead and just latch these two directly where we latch the other ones, and at least we'll know it works every time you press the button. I feel like there is some other functionality, which now that I say that, let's go ahead and click this over, because this does have a play and a demo mode, so possibly this may be because of the demo. Nope, seems to be working exactly the same, so yeah, let's go and latch it on, and we will go from there, and we'll start circuit bending this. Okay, so we should be good right here. Yeah, that looks good. You know what? I think these are supposed to be different, so that might have been right. Because if you saw, it had one really bright light and then it just kind of like faded out. So I'm thinking maybe this was the correct placement for it. But then again, it's on all the time, so that's kind of sketchy. Maybe right here, let's try this out. So I guess that kind of determines if it's going to be on all the time though. So we probably don't want that. So that may have been our best bet. Although it is kind of cool that it's coming on. Okay, so I guess we'll just go ahead and go with the original plan here. It is kind of cool that it comes on and then it's dimmer while he talks, but it seems like it's going to be an on all the time thing, so. Okay. Right, so the good part about having this off is we can actually isolate the resistor a lot easier just by looking at the other side. Figuring out one we're touching here. So it's not that one. It's more likely that one. So if you've been watching my vlogs for a while, you remember that R1 and R2 are very commonly the resistors you're going to be dealing with. And it appears that is no exception. So it is actually R1 on this one. That's controlling the speed. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and put, well, we'll keep it apart for now. Let's go ahead and latch onto R1 and just get our tempo tone control on. Now, I am giving myself plenty of length right here. And the reason being is because essentially I'm probably going to be running the wires up into his face or on the top here. So we are going to leave ourselves plenty of space here. And we are going to go ahead and add it just like that. And then I'm going to do less slack over here so it doesn't short circuit. The other side for right now is just going to be for testing, just to make sure we do have the tempo tone control, and more than likely we're going to be latching onto the ground, so we're not really going to need to test it onto anything, but we will see. Okay, so we should be good there. Now we're just inching it closer to see if it's going to crash. So it crashed right before touching. It appears that wasn't an actual crash. So we need a very, very light resistor on this. So for this, we're going to try maybe something like 100. So 100 ohm. So here's a 100 ohm. Hopefully this is enough. I mean, it was right before it touched, it crashed. So we will see. It seems fine. It's a little bit sketchy. Oh, did it actually crash? Okay, so let's go ahead and restart it. So maybe we'll run 2 in series. I think we should go ahead and attempt it with the 100 on it, just because there's no real way right now for me to take myself out of the circuit, aside from actually wrapping the resistor in. So I think we'll probably be good on the 100K. I'm sorry, 100 ohm. If not, we can always just add to it. So let's go ahead and just roll with that. And for this, let's figure out which one's the median, and we'll just go ahead and tie it in. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if this crashes it. So I'm just going to leave it on the ground for a minute. And then we're going to pull it completely away and see if it crashes. And it did. So we're going to be tying the 100K into this and then seeing if this is going to yield any results on keeping it from crashing on both ends. And if not, we'll have to go up a bit. So as you can see, without really holding it, it's kind of hard to get it to glitch out all the time. Alright, let's go ahead and solder onto our ground here. Okay, let's try it again. Alright, that seems fine. I mean, it is stopping it quite a bit, but it doesn't seem to be all the way stopping it, which I'm okay with. So let's go ahead and just add that in, and we will need a switch as well. If you remember last time, I definitely forgot about it. Well, for this one, it might be a bit different. So if you remember, I said I was going to be running this stuff into its face. So it'd probably be best if we went ahead and drilled this out and then fed the wires through before adding the components, which is good that we gave ourselves extra slack because we're going to need it in order to actually feed it through high enough so we can solder the components on. So let's go ahead and drill this out. If I can find my drill, give me 1 second, please. Alright, now to do this, I'm just going to drill right through here, pretty much anywhere in it, just so we can feed some wires through. And just for the heck of it, let's go and drill another one. That's just in case we run out of room. So that is good right there. Now we're just going to feed these wires through. So I just thought of that, and we totally need that to go on. So we definitely have messed up. So that will happen sometimes. That's kind of the danger of taking things apart to an extent. So if we were to keep this the way it's going, as you see, we wouldn't be able to get that back on. So we're going to have to desolder these two things and rerun them. put this back on. One thing you could definitely do is run these sideways. So what I mean by that is actually, this doesn't really matter too much. Oh, yes it does. Never mind. Alright, we'll scratch that idea. Because apparently it does matter. They actually ran the bolts differently inside of here. So you couldn't put him on incorrectly. So I am just calling it quits at the moment for these bolts, and we're just going to keep these to the side and continue working. So now we are safe to actually run these through. Go ahead and solder these back in. So the next thing we should probably do is go ahead and solder the potentiometer on here, now that we have the space to do so. And then that will keep the wires from getting pulled back through. So I'm going to grab a switch, and we're going to do that first. Go ahead and solder this here. desolder these two on. Just realized that you guys can't even see what I'm doing. So there we go. Okay, so that should be good. Let's go ahead and hit the button here. So it is at a direct stop. It has a really, really pretty 8-bit sound to it. Looks like it glitched out as well. So all the way at the top end, it has this weird looping glitch, if you can hear. So that's fantastic because I've never experienced that glitch before on this specific instrument. So considering it's still running really, really well and that loop glitch is present there, that's awesome. That is absolutely awesome because that's going to make a really, really cool thing with the Pikachu if they're both glitching out. So that is really cool. So we're just going to go ahead and wrap these two up here. Then let's go ahead and mount, just for the heck of it, let's mount these two. You know what? We probably don't even need to. We'll wait on it. We'll just stick them down there and wait on it. So next thing we're going to be doing on this is probably finding some LEDs. So if you noticed my older ones, if you've ever seen those videos and stuff, they have a lot of LEDs on. And the reason being is because we have all this space and really nothing to do with the space aside from mounting a couple components on it. So I add a bunch of LEDs inside of here, and this is going to be no exception. So I'm planning on trying to find out where the LEDs could possibly be coming from, because I do not remember. It's been a couple years since I've done one of these. And we will figure out how many LEDs we can actually fit inside of here. So my very obvious go-to on LEDs is always going to be the speaker, just because it's the most stable place to actually put LEDs without interfering with anything else. So hopefully we can get something out of the speaker here. So it doesn't appear to be the case that we can. So let's, out of curiosity, let's try to go ahead and go off of its LEDs. So that doesn't appear to be a thing either. And I'm going to set that to the side because that LED is getting really hot, which is usually a sign that the LED might be bad. So that one's actually working really, really well. So it looks like there are a couple different places that we can put the LEDs in here. I'm going to go ahead and go with the safe option real quick, and we're just going to run the LEDs directly out of where it's sourcing its LEDs. And it appears to be the case that our last LED that we were testing was bad. So that kind of demonstrates the importance of testing different components if you're not getting the results desired, I guess you could say. So let's go ahead and solder right in here. Different LEDs out in a bunch of different places just for fun. And if we go that route, they're more than likely going to be static LEDs. And the reason being, a lot of times static LEDs won't have a negative effect on the circuit board, whereas RGB color changing LEDs would have. And also they tend to be a little bit cooler because they kind of showcase when certain functionalities are working within the instrument, whereas RGB LEDs would just click over to a different color or something of that nature. So it still shows it in a way, but it's not exactly as apparent, I would say. Okay, now that I have this LED up here, we're just going to run quite a few different LEDs directly off of this, and then we're going to run them all in parallel. That way we can at least get this lit up for now, and then we'll focus a little bit more on getting some different effects here in a minute. So from here, I'm going to give myself plenty of slack and cut more wiring. And we're just going to run a bunch. And I'm going to use a ribbon cable directly for this. So 3 and 3. So this is a cool little trick. So if you take a ribbon cable, split it down the middle right here, then I'm going to pull these apart. Now we're just going to split these guys. Alright, from here, I'm going to take all 3 strands that I just cut, roll them together. Then I'm going to do the same on the other side. I totally just cut that, so that wasn't cool. Now I'm going to roll these 3 together. So now I have 2 separate strands of wire with 3 rolled together. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go up here now, and then we're going to roll this together with whatever it is that we are running in parallel. So there we go. Now we're going to do this one. Again, just rolling it together. So now if you can see, we have 2 separate wires that are being run in parallel through this ribbon cable. From here, I am just going to go ahead and put these folded, and then let's solder them in. And I'll show you exactly what we did here in a second. So that's placed there. Now, what we've done here is we've ran 3 separate wires out in parallel so we can pull this back. You can also do these, since you'll probably notice you have positive and negative on 3 separate tracks here, you can also do these staggered, meaning this one positive, this one negative, this one positive, this one negative. You can do that as well. It's a little more tricky to do. Essentially what I just did was lined up the wires so where we can pull them back and then run all the LEDs in different places. So it is a little more tricky to do it that way, and it takes a little more time, I think, but it's worth doing just because it does look a little neater in the long run. And for this, I'm just going to go ahead and grab a bunch of different LEDs, and we're just going to see what we end up with here. It may look good, it may not look good. If it doesn't look good, we can switch them out. I guess it would help if we kind of pulled these guys back a little bit, wouldn't we? Okay, so the reason neither one of those LEDs were working is actually just sourced off of the same input, if you noticed that before I did. The green and the gray are on the same exact wire, which is this one right here, so we weren't actually pulling from two different wires. So let's try this again. Okay, so that's a fast fading RGB LED right here. Okay, so that's pretty fun. I like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and latch that one in because I do like that. It has a phase where it goes through and clicks through every single color that is available on it, and that's pretty fun LED. Now, once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and pull that through. Then I have its own LED just kind of floating out there. Okay, let's go and try that out. Let's try some more LEDs. So blue's not super fun with this instrument. At least I don't feel like it is. I was thinking if we were going to do static, we should probably do like more of a red. So that's another blue. So that was another blue. So let's go ahead and specifically look for red in here. So I am not quite sure. It appears I have a lot of blues and not much else. I would also be very open to teal, because teal would be a really cool color to have inside of this. Just not that very industrial blue. That's not super bad. I kind of like that. We'll keep that to the side. So we have a bunch of those. So white would be kind of interesting to have in there. Although that seems to be pulling a lot. It seems to actually be... Yeah, it seems to be pulling a lot of amperage and actually dulling the other LEDs down. So maybe if we were to take this and then we were to put 100K on each of them, we might be able to get away with that and dim them down just a tiny bit. Because this is such a largely bright LED that it would just light up the entire inside. So that's not super bad. Alright, so let's go and solder that one in. Okay, so we should be good there. We have one more LED slot before we either run more in parallel from this or branch out and see if we can get some different functionalities. So I think we should go ahead and go with that light blue, because that was a really cool thing. Yeah, that's really pretty. I think it kind of complements the white. And the RGB fast fading LED is going to be kind of its own little thing, so we may need to add another one of those on the same track, because I think it's just going to really pull all the attention to it. So that looks really good. Okay. So if you give me 1 second, I'm going to see if I have something, and I think it would really be cool in this instrument if I do have it. Okay, so here I have a doll head, and if we could fit it inside of this instrument, that would be kind of cool. We might need to cut it a bit, but it would be cool to have a glowing doll head inside of this. And I absolutely hate to do this because they get hairs everywhere. Let's go ahead and okay. Well, that is a fancy hairdo right there. All right, now I'm going to cut this a bit more. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And I also want to say, if you ever want my barber services, just let me know. You live in the Ohio area and need a barber, I'm available for that, I think. And what we are going to do is to give us a more creepy vibe, we're going to drill this in. We're going to try to drill out some holes inside of this. Obviously, mainly in the eyes. Just because you still want it to be recognizable. And then from here, since we have the holes in there, let's go ahead and cut it out like this. Okay, so that looks pretty good to me. Maybe we'll cut this a tiny bit more. Try to even those out a bit. All right, so that looks fine. And just for the heck of it, let's go ahead and add this too. So that looks insanely creepy. And we'll have to modify the bottom a bit. So what we're going to do at the bottom is we're just going to try to cut this out. So it has a sleeve that grips onto the actual like Barbie neck. And we're just going to try to modify that so that doesn't grip on any longer. That way we can actually fit it over the lantern and just hot glue it wherever we want. It is rather frustrating to do. I may just use a step-up drill bit on it. And hopefully this works. It's not working as well as I'd like. Thinking maybe a razor blade would be good for this, but I'm not sure. Maybe a normal knife. Let's try a razor blade. Give me 1 second, please. Thank you. In my drawer right there. So I think you should be able to see me again. So yeah, look how easily that's just cutting through there. Okay, that looks good. And if we could just rip it out of here, then we would be all right. And apparently we can't. I'm gonna run the razor blade through one more time. At least try to get it out in pieces. It might work right there, so let's go ahead and try to stick this back on here. Okay, actually that works perfect. It might be a little hard to see, but that's pretty cool. I'm thinking maybe put the color changing LED. Let's try this. Let's try to put the color changing LED in the top of its head. And then we'll use the hair to cover up the top portion of it. And that'll give it a little more of a visual look. So I think if we just cut it right at the top right there, we could probably shove this LED directly through there. Okay. So that's how it looks without the actual bottom being on it. So I think it has a really good aesthetic look to it. Then if we stick it on here, now we're doing it sideways. And the reason being is because you don't want to look at the face and then see the face behind it, because it's going to obscure actual doll face of it. So we're just trying to make it so where it's very, very visible if you were to look at it in a specific way. Okay, so that looks fantastic in my opinion. Just let me know if you can't see that. That looks really good in my opinion. And then that way we could actually keep the LEDs kind of, I'm going to say at a minimum, but we want it dark enough to be able to see in there. Or that might actually not matter too much. But that looks awesome. That looks absolutely awesome in my opinion. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to go ahead and run a couple more LEDs in parallel. I'm going to keep them all static at this point. So all of these LEDs we're going to be adding, which I'm thinking probably 2 more, are just going to be static LEDs. They're going to be running the same exact rhythm as these. So we're going to run them in parallel. But we're keeping them static because we want the color changing, since it does draw your eye, we want it specifically to be on the doll head. Now let's go ahead and fold these together. And we're just going to latch this onto one of our existing LEDs. And just for the heck of it, let's latch it onto this one. Right onto the white LED. And that'll kind of give a dimming effect to the other LEDs that we're adding in here, which I'm not super opposed to. Okay. All right. Okay, so here's a white LED, so we're just going to latch that on. Then we're looking for a light blue one. Which I believe is one of these, but I am not quite sure. So we will see. So that's a red. So after all that time looking for red, oh, no, it's a slow fading color changing LED. Which is interesting. We may actually have a pretty hard time finding another blue LED. Come to think of it. I shouldn't say blue, light blue. Yeah, it's just a slow fading as well. That's kind of weird. That must have definitely just got mixed up in the pack somehow, and here we are. Let me do some looking around here. Actually, I think I have a pack of them, which would be very, very helpful. Totally different LEDs. Let's check out the color though. So this looks like it might work, but at the same time it's not really coming on with that resistor. So let's try it without. Okay, so that'll work. We just have to run it pre-resistor. Because that's the same color. Alright, so all of our LEDs are set up now. And with the LEDs, we're literally just shoving them in here and we're just going to let them run loose. Because I think they have a lot better look like that, as opposed to hot gluing them. Hot glue definitely does have its advantages on some of this stuff, but with the LEDs inside of like loose things, should say loose enclosures, I really like the LEDs just to kind of run free. Plus, I think that makes the instrument just more interesting in general because it could very well change over time. So from here, the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and drill in the switch and the potentiometer. And where we're at right now, if I'm not forgetting anything, we only have the Pro sound to add. And then it's just simply putting everything together. Oh, you knew we were going through the eye. Now for the switch, I'm not really sure where we're going to be adding this. I don't want to put it in the other eye because I think that's kind of, I don't know, I just don't think it'll look good. So we're just going to add the switch right here to the side so it's not going to interfere with our doll head that's inside of here. We're just going to add it right over here to the side. Okay, there we go. Let's go ahead and put some hot glue in here just to keep the switch from moving around. So just like that. so the hot glue doesn't have a really bad running effect. Okay. You know, I'm super hoping I have like a steampunk looking pot knob for this, because that would absolutely look cool. And then if you are just joining, this is the monstrosity we've created. Okay, so that looks good. And let me go ahead and look for a pot knob right now to see what we can find here. And we may possibly just make one. We'll see. Yes, I have quite a few, but I don't know that any of them really fits the personality of this instrument. Here's a cork just in case we need to make one. Yeah. Ooh, I like that. Let's go ahead and look through some of the other bottle caps that I have. I have some that are really rusted up, and then others that are pretty pristine. So these all seem to be really rusted up, so let's go ahead and look at the pristine ones. So I must have misplaced somehow. So I'm not seeing them. Oh, this is kind of funny. So there's an energy drink in America, and I'm not going to pronounce it, but there's an energy drink in America. So that to me doesn't look too bad. I actually like that. And it's kind of funny. Fits the Play School logo, and it's kind of funny as well, so it's something we could kind of laugh about. Okay. I'm going to bend up the sides a bit on this to make it close in a little bit more for the hot glue. Alright, so that is insanely bulky, but I think it fits our instrument quite well. You may want to cut that down a bit. Yeah, I'm going to cut that down a bit. So if I can figure out what I did with my razor blade here. Seem to be misplacing everything. There we go. All right. I am going to have to wait till this dries a tiny bit more before we cut that down. As you've seen, it stuck out quite a bit. I don't want it really to stick out that much. So from here, let's go ahead and add the Pro Sound on while we're waiting for this to dry, and then we'll cut that back a bit. So with the Pro Sound, I'm going to use the same rule of thumb that I did before on actually providing myself enough wire, because I am going to be feeding this through here. I'm just not sure where exactly we're going to be mounting it as of yet. So let's go with the same rule of thumb just right off the bat though, and let's give ourselves enough room here. And because we did a speaker replacement earlier, the Pro Sound's going to be absolutely no problem. It's the blue wires right here. And we're going just to run them directly out from that. So there's actually a patch bay a little bit before, so you can see the blue wire runs out here. We'll go ahead and tag into this one, just to give ourselves a little bit more room and so we don't have to resolder the blue wire. So there we go. And then that one is on as well, so easy enough. We'll take this and we'll run this right through here. That's pretty cool. Try to turn this Pro Sound over. Okay. So that looks great in my opinion. It looks like we did not solder all of these LEDs. Looks like we may have forgot one of them. So I'll go ahead and get that real quick. All right. Let's set that one up a little bit more too. There we go. That's good. All right, so we're going to cut this back now because it appears to be dry. We don't have a lot of room, but I don't really need it to be all that. It's like all that far off. So I mean, we can actually cut into it quite a bit here without having any issues. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Because some of the pot knob, or I should say, some of the potentiometer without the knob can be showing and it look perfectly fine. We really want to back it all the way onto the top right here. Let me go ahead and reinforce this with a little more hot glue. All right, there we go. It does look like some leaked out over here, so let's take the razor blade and just try to get some of that. And if it comes down to it, it'll be a lot easier to remove when it dries. Okay, so we should be good there. And we're going to go ahead and mount the 1/4 jack at this point. Now, caught myself, but we want to mount the 1/4 jack so where it's not going to interfere with the doll head that's inside. We want to still be able to very visually see that. So I'm thinking on the top by his eyes. Now I have to figure out what I do with my step-up drill bit. Sometimes when you get so deep into these projects, you just have so much stuff laying around at this point that it's kind of hard to figure out where things are, but here we are. Okay, so that looks good. Now we're just going to go ahead and turn this knob, and as you see, the knob itself is kind of being hard to turn, so we're just going to take the razor blade. That's because of excess hot glue on here. I'm just going to run the razor blade through here. These custom mades can be kind of annoying on occasion because of this stuff. Let's try that out. So as you notice, our LEDs are not working here. As well as the pot knob is moving around, so that's doubly not good. Now it's fairly obvious what's going on with the LEDs. The wire came off on the bottom there, but so I'm actually going to back this pot knob off of here. And we're going to try to reset it. And by resetting it, I don't mean resetting the instrument, just resetting the pot knob back to where we want it to go after getting all of these excess hot glue spots off of here. And then possibly putting this thing on tighter. So let's just make sure it's working. Okay, so it is not working on our bottom, so maybe that's for the pot knob right here. So that's not good, so maybe it's not super fairly obvious what's going on with the LEDs. Let's go ahead and add some excess wire onto this because it is a little short. Actually, I think we had a wire earlier we could use for it. This wouldn't be a bad extension. Alright, so this should be back up and working at this point. Okay, so that's great. Now, our question is, what's going on with these LEDs? Because they don't seem like they should have any reason to not work. At least I'm not seeing any very apparent reason. I'm thinking possibly like a short circuit in here. That doesn't appear to be it. So let's check back to the source here. Well, actually, right there, that appears to be it. So that is super not good. So if you look at what happened here, this actually pulled off of the board. Now, this isn't a major deal for us on this specific instrument. This could be a really bad thing, but on this actual instrument, it's not really, you can kind of see the board right there. It's not really something that I'm majorly concerned about, because if you're a person who's watched this channel quite a bit, you'll notice that this is on a pathway directly to this one right here. So we can very simply just go to that next one and not have any issues with it. It's going to give us the same exact result. But it is something to definitely watch out for. That wasn't a point I was even expecting to come off, but expect the unexpected, I guess. So let's go ahead and I'm going to try to desolder the rest of that board from this. It's not exactly a solder friendly thing. Okay, there we go. Let's go ahead and latch directly onto this, which is going to be a little bit of a harder point to solder onto. Okay, so that should give us the same results. Oh. I totally just popped it off again, didn't I? Nope. Good. So something is short-circuiting here every time I lift it up. So what I would need to do in this instance, let's go ahead and start taping some stuff up. And I'm going to also place this back on as well. Alright, so that'll be good. Now I'm going to do less hot glue this time. We're just going to go in here and kind of break up the hot glue a bit. I'm just going to put a very small dab and go ahead and put that on. And it's still trying to leak out. Definitely is not as bad as it was though. Okay, so we should be good right there. Okay, let's tape up these points. So that's all taped up. I think we should be good. Okay. Yeah, I think we're good. Let's go ahead and I guess now is the time to start putting it back together, right? If I'm forgetting anything, definitely let me know. Better you guys let me know than putting it back together and figuring out I forgot something. This is kind of unique right here. I wonder if we could actually stick the speaker. No. It almost looked like it was a point for a smaller speaker. That's kind of interesting. So let's go ahead and start putting everything back together at this point. Start moving some stuff just so we can get more room. And so I can accurately track down the bolts here. Right now here, I'm going to try to shove all of the wiring that I can into this box. This one's just kind of being difficult, so we'll tie it up a bit. There we go. We're going to place that speaker right there and go ahead and hot glue it on the sides. Let's hot glue it and drop it in here. And I really don't want to submerge the speaker in hot glue because that's going to actually interfere with how it sounds. So, yeah, it sounds fine, and I think we're good there. Now, one thing is a bit different. Since I didn't take this apart, and this was originally a repair job, I'm not quite sure how this button goes on. And it honestly looks like I'm missing some pieces. But I'm not sure. So I just don't see how these two things can go together. So I might be missing something. Let's go ahead and put the top back on. We'll shove these back inside of here. do another check on the LEDs. That's not a very fair distribution, so let's put some down in there. One right here. There we go. That looks a little bit better. Okay, so now let's try to figure out what exactly is going on with this. So I feel like that fits, but maybe not. We're definitely still missing something. So no doubt it goes like that. It's going to be on the outside, or maybe that's on the inside. Let's try that. Okay, so that's what's going on. So that's on the inside. And but this fits inside of here. I don't know. Yeah, there we go. So I was not missing any pieces. I'm still kind of confused on how the whole deal works out with I'm still kind of confused on how the whole button deal works out. But, I mean, this is progress, for sure. Let's put this back. You would think that when it turns, it hits the button, but the issue with that, it seems, is that when this is on, it locks in place. But we're going to go ahead and put this on and see if we are getting that or if it is allowing it to freely move. Alright, now where is this other bolt? We may not have got one. But we definitely do need a bolt inside of this. So I'm going to go ahead and put one in just from the back. Okay, so let's check this out. Okay, so it is freely moving, as you can see. So that's great, and that appears we are on the right track. So let's put that here. So I feel like we're having some issues with the speaker possibly, on just where it is. Let's try to pull the speaker out a tiny bit more. Then we'll set it back. Might not be the speaker actually, come to think of it. Because it looks like we did get some excess hot glue right here. I thought would matter, but it might. Let's do that and let's try to put this back on. Okay, so there we go, we're in the right spot now. Okay, so that appears to be good right there. Let's see if the button works. Okay, so the button seems to work really, really well. The only thing that I'm really seeing, we're going to put this back together. The only thing I'm really seeing that I don't like about this is we did have that white LED move right in front of the face of the doll, which I don't really like that. So we're going to go ahead and put these together, and oh, the bolt is right here. That's horrible. Okay, well, let's take this back out. Okay, so we are going to need this bolt, and we found the other one, so let's pop this bolt out. Now, where is that last bolt at? Oh, right here. Okay. So let's go ahead and check it out. So it does still have that cool loop to it, and everything appears to be working good. Here's a Stovey looping. So yeah, I like everything about this except for if you look right here, you can kind of see how the white LED is directly in front of the face that we put in there, and I don't really like that too much. Alright, so what we're going to do to fix that is we're just going to go ahead and take the back off of this real quick, because this is a real easy fix. And then I'm sticking with actually letting these LEDs stay free. Obviously that would have solved the problem if we were to actually put those in any other way. But I'm going to stick with actually making these free roaming in here. So that worked really well right there. And maybe it's our face. It's a little bit to the side. So let's move that out of the way. We're just rearranging some stuff here. Okay, so that looks good to me. All of that seems perfectly fine. So let's go ahead and put it back together now. that is a wrap. Both instruments together. That is what we've done today. Just out of curiosity, let's do this, just for fun. So it didn't seem to be dark enough to really have too much of an effect. I was trying to pull that LED resistor into it. But anyway, thank you for joining me today. I hope all of you guys have an awesome Sunday and awesome rest of your week. So thank you so much for tuning in. Also, if you have any questions or comments or anything, just feel free to comment them in the comment section, even if you didn't get to ask them today. But thanks for joining in. I'll have an overview of this up here soon. I know last week I said that I'd have one within the week, and it took me pretty much all week to make. Seems scouring through like 2 hours of video is a little bit more time consuming than I had anticipated, but yeah, I'll eventually have a overview of this over, and also I've got some really cool videos coming up here really soon as far as performance videos. But I hope you guys have an awesome Sunday, and I will see you soon.